Nintendo and the Pokemon Company do not respect their customers, and they don't respect the money that they're spending on their games, or at least that's how they've been treating us for the better part of a decade. And honestly, as a gamer, I'm sick of it. I'm honestly just sick of it, which is why I keep banging the drum on this issue. And to be fair, I genuinely thought my last video covering the Legend ZA sales numbers from Japan was going to be my last video on this topic, but Pokemon just released the global first week sales numbers for Pokemon Legend ZA, and it kind of made things look even worse than I thought. But not only that, the average Pokemon fans that are leaving hate comments on all of my videos are over on Twitter celebrating this data as if Nintendo is like splitting the profits with them, as if they did anything. Buddy, you're cheering on the fact that they literally scammed you out of your money again. Why are you celebrating? To own the haters online? Like, okay, man, whatever you say. There was also a huge leak about the DLC, and if it's true, it's just even more of a cash grab than I even thought originally. Anyway, today we're going to dive into the official first week global sales of Pokemon Legends ZA, what they actually mean, and then later in the video we're actually going to cover a more serious Pokemon topic that has to do with the toxicity and harassment within the Pokemon community. I'll share with you guys my thoughts and opinions on everything, but first, what's going on, guys? Cheers. Theo came to say hi. Oh, you're just gonna sit? You're just gonna sit, right? Okay. Oh yeah, just lay down on my keyboard. Yeah, that's fine. Oh, okay. He said to leave a like, by the way. Anyway, let's jump right in here. Pokemon Legends ZA sells over 5.8 million copies in its first week, cementing the real-time RPG as a success, even if it's still lagging behind Legends Arceus. So the writing is on the wall, folks. We'll dive into this in just a minute. The Pokemon Company announced in a press release that in its first week, Pokemon Legends ZA has already sold 5.8 million copies, with about half of those sales coming from Switch 2 edition. This will immediately put it into the echelon of best-selling Switch 2 games. Mario Kart World sold 5.6 million in its first month, according to Nintendo, and considering it is estimated that it only needs to sell 200,000 copies to break even, I'm sure Nintendo and the Pokemon Company are happy. That's right, folks. They made sure the budget for this game was so small that it all but guaranteed that they could not deliver a quality product to the consumer, and now they are celebrating that they're selling millions and millions of copies and maximizing their profits to the moon, and all the customer is left with is a buggy game that feels incomplete with a small world map, $30 day one DLC, and the list of complaints goes on and on and on. Let's take a look at the official press release here. It is of course in Japanese. We can use Google Translate to translate this, and basically it tells us exactly what we just read. They kind of go on to talk about, you know, the plot of the game and what Legends ZA is all about. And by the way, on the topic of the game selling really well, we had people over on Twitter saying things like this. So random YouTubers and social media grifters spouting rubbish. How will you spin this one into the game bombing? I'm sorry, who said the game bombed? It's like these people read titles and thumbnails, come to their own conclusions, and then make up things about what they think the other side is saying. Literally nobody said this game was gonna bomb. What are you talking about? Even in my original video where I covered Legends EA talking about how awful it was, I said the game would probably go on to sell between 10 and 15 million units, and this first week's sales is like right in line with that. I suspect the game will probably sell about 13 and a half unless sales fall off a cliff. Maybe it'll be a little more than that, but I don't know. This user responds saying no one said it would bomb, quite the opposite. They said it was lazy and a bad game overall, and proof that Nintendo fans will eat any slop they're given. This user says no one is saying the game bombed at all. What are you talking about? There was a report about less sales in the UK, but it's more nuanced and has to do with the adoption of digital over physical sales mostly these days. I just covered this in a video. Most of the discourse is because it's overhyped, underbaked, and has zero voice acting. It's $100 in Canada for the Switch 2 version. That's the real offense here, to be honest. And then of course the user responds saying people said the game bombed. Again, I have not seen anybody say that this game is going to flop. I don't know anyone who predicted that. Even all the people on YouTube and Twitter who are hating on the game right now, everyone knows Pokemon's going to sell well, right? That was never in anyone's predictions. So we've got Pokemon fans celebrating victories over a hallucinated argument that no one's been making, or maybe they have been and I just haven't seen it. You guys can let me know if there's like, you know, people with 4 likes on Twitter that are saying the game is going to bomb. I don't know. And let me be very clear, I'm not as stupid as I look. All right, if somebody looks at the titles and thumbnails of my videos, I can see how if they have a preconceived notion about me or my content, they would arrive at the conclusion that they think that I think that the game was going to bomb. But again, I never said that, and I don't know anyone else who said that. So if you're just coming to that conclusion all on your own based on your own biases, that seems more like your own problem than anybody else's. And on the topic of Pokemon Pokemon glazers just hallucinating things. We see stuff like this over on Reddit, and I also saw this shared on Twitter. Just gonna put this here: new Pokemon game comes out, toxic fans bitch about it, fans start to glaze it online, quote, that game was always good. Buddy, this has 2.6 thousand upvotes, and not a single person actually ever said this. They literally just made this up. I've not seen a single person come out and be like, wow, I hated Legends ZA when I first bought it, but now 4 days later I actually changed my mind, I love this game. Like, no, there are three types of people. Okay, you either bought the game and loved it and you don't even know that there's backlash. Two, you bought the game seeing the backlash, was curious, you bought the game, you liked it, in which case you were never a toxic fan, you just didn't know what to think and now you like it. Or three, you bought the game to hate play it and you genuinely hate it, and that's it. So they're hallucinating stuff like this to make them feel better, like, oh, we were right all along, there's all these people that were toxic and now they love it. It's like, really, where? But anyway, I digress. Let's jump back into the real data here, because earlier in the video I said that this official first week sales for Pokemon Legends ZA is actually worse than I thought it would be, and let me tell you guys why. The article that we just read actually alluded to it already, but it's the fact that Pokemon Legends Arceus was selling even better. Pokemon Legends Arceus has sold 6.5 million copies just a week after launch, Nintendo has announced. For some context, Legends Arceus's sales have outpaced Pokemon Sword and Shield's launch performance by about 500,000. Don't worry, we're going to go over other games in just a moment here. This was the official tweet from Nintendo of America saying thank you to the more than 6.5 million explorers worldwide who have already embarked on an exciting new adventure in Pokemon Legends Arceus. We hope you're loading up on more potato mochi before your next research mission. Okay, so what we see is that the predecessor to Pokemon Legends ZA sold 6.5 million units worldwide, and the sequel, Pokemon Legends ZA, sold 5.8 million units worldwide. So if we do some basic math, we can see that worldwide Pokemon Legends ZA saw a sales decline from its predecessor of 10.7%, nearly an 11% sales drop off from the last game, which, by the way, one of the biggest things that people were celebrating in the video that I just posted yesterday is that, oh my god, in Japan the game sold better than Legends Arceus, we just totally owned the haters, yay. But now that we see the real data, it's like, okay, you barely outperformed in Japan, but you're down 10.5% globally. So actually that's a bad thing. I don't know if you guys figured that out yet. It's not good to be down 10%. And it gets even worse when we take a look at the Pokemon Scarlet and Violet sales, which surpassed 10 million global sales in the first 3 days. This was a new record. I miss Melee, bro. I miss Melee. Actually, I should probably pop that in. Now, there's a huge caveat here, and I will go a little bit deeper into that in just a minute, because it's something that I missed in my last video, and I want to be very clear. I want to cover all this as thoroughly as I possibly can. But the article goes on to say Pokemon Scarlet and Violet may have some serious technical issues, but it seems to have no impact on sales of the new generation. Wow, I am having deja vu. It's like release after release. You could start these articles with the exact same sentence every single time, and it would be true, right? All you have to do is remove Scarlet and Violet here and type Legends ZA, and you could just basically rehash this entire article. Hopping over to Nintendo's official corporate press release, this is what they said back in 2022. Global sales of Switch software Scarlet and Violet surpassed 10 million units for the first 3 days after its release. So this is, again, official global data from Nintendo specifically. This is not an estimate, this is not a guess, this is Nintendo specifically saying what the sales numbers were. Okay, now one thing that I want to make sure I drill down on a little bit, because this is my bad, I did not drill down on this at all in my last video, and I meant to do so. I started to go down that path, and then my brain, I just got distracted and went off on a rant, and then the video ended. Okay, but I do want to make it very clear that we're comparing Legends ZA to Scarlet and Violet, which is a dual release. Okay, this release had 2 games, Scarlet and Violet, and so when we look at 10 million units, that is spread across 2 games instead of 1. And as a matter of fact, I would be willing to bet that a lot of people actually bought the double pack right when the game came out. Like it bundles it, both of them together. I don't think you even got a steelbook, did we? Oh, it's still sealed. I forgot, I never even opened this. The box doesn't say it has a steelbook. I know Sword and Shield did, but I bet you it doesn't, because again, the Pokemon company and Nintendo do not respect the consumer or their money, so they've been slowly giving us less and less for a higher price. Regardless, I want to be very clear here that I'm sure lots of people bought both games, which is why this number is so much higher, right? I think that's logical to assume that. Now you could try to make the argument that like, all right, so if it sold 10 million combined, that's 5 million for Scarlet, 5 million for Violet, which means, you know, last generation sold 5 million per copy, now we're selling 5.8 million, and like that's an increase, I guess, if you want to do like mathematical gymnastics to try to fit a narrative. But I don't think that makes any logical sense, and here's why. Okay, if you're making the argument that it's split down the middle, 5 million for each version, then what you're saying is Pokemon literally doubles their sales by just adding a second version. Okay, if that's true, right, if I'm following your logic, if that's all it takes, why wouldn't they release Legends Arceus in 2 versions? Does that make sense? Like, if it's really that simple, why wouldn't they just do Pokemon Legends ZA gold version, Pokemon Legends ZA silver version, and then they just doubled their sales? If that was really the entire picture that we're trying to paint here, why would they not just easily double their sales, right? And that's kind of a genuine question. I'm genuinely asking. Like, to me it would make like, hey, why not just do that, right? I mean, the mindless consumers are going to buy anything anyway. Just do it. Just make it a 2-pack. Regardless, I don't think it makes sense to assume that it would only have sold 5 million if you just erased one of these units, right? But that's all speculation. We're never going to know for sure because we don't have the actual numbers. Now remember, earlier I said we're going to touch on these Sword and Shield numbers, and we do have an official post from the Japanese Pokemon Twitter account. They said, fastest and most in Nintendo Switch software history, Pokemon Sword and Shield surpassed 6 million units sold worldwide in its first week of release. Now I do want to break down the Legends ZA sales a little bit more, so we will talk about that in just a second. But okay, so going back to our argument from before, if we assume that cutting this in half is 5 million for each, so you're saying that it's only 3 million per sword per shield? I don't know. I don't think that makes any sense. Again, there was a dual pack. I think a lot of people bought both, but I do think it's interesting that we have 6 million units sold worldwide for Sword and Shield. That was back in 2019, November of 2019, and now we've got 5.8 million copies sold for Legends ZA in October of 2025. So in 6 years you have about the same number of sales. Again, I know that some people bought both, so it's not apples to oranges. I totally hear you, but I don't know, that just feels not good, and here's why, right? And I've mentioned this in a previous video, but let's go back to the Legends Arceus first week sales for just a second, okay? Because I think this is, of course, the most logical comparison to make, right? They're both Legends games. They both have just one version instead of 2. I think it's fair to compare these two because they are the most similar, okay? Legends Arceus came out in January of 2022, which means Nintendo had 2022, 2023, 2024 and half of 2025 to sell more Switch units, and they sold tens of millions of them, by the way, and they sold like 7 or 8 million Switch 2 units. Remember, Legends ZA is on both consoles. What you're telling me is that the install base for the Switch plus the Switch 2 is never been bigger. This is the biggest possible install base, and Nintendo sold tens of millions more Switch 2s in the last 3.5 years, and yet Legends ZA still didn't sell as well as Legends Arceus. How is that even possible? How do you have nearly an 11% drop in sales worldwide from the predecessor to the sequel despite having a larger install base? Does that make any sense logically? If you have more customers who are able to play your game and yet you see a 10.5% sales decrease, I don't know, that seems not good, right? I mean, how are we going to spin this to be positive? I mean, I guess you could say, well, people bought the day one DLC and the Switch 2 version cost more, so like they made more money off of it, so even though the sales are down, profits are up, and that's all that matters, so yay profit, I guess. I don't know. And not to repeat myself, but this is what I meant earlier when I said that the global sales numbers are actually worse looking than the Japan sales numbers, because at least when you look at like the Famitsu sales data that we already touched on in the last video, you could say, oh man, look at Legends ZA, it's sold as well or more than Legends Arceus, let's go, the haters were wrong, like this game is so good, everyone loves this game, and all the grifters online are just making stuff up, right? Like you could do that, and like I guess you could have an argument there, but now that they released the official data, it's like, okay, actually wait, sales are down by 10.5%, so okay, well, there goes that argument. I guess Legends ZA didn't sell better than Arceus after all. And just to be super thorough, let me remind you that Legends Arceus came out 2 months after Brilliant Diamond and Shining Pearl. So in that context, not only did customers just spend money on probably a double pack, but at least one other Pokemon game just 2 months earlier, but launching a brand new game in January is like the worst month to launch a game because everyone just spent all their money during the holiday season. A lot of times people are not spending a lot in January, and so when you compare the context of that situation, everyone just already bought another Pokemon game and they spent all their money in holiday, and yet even still Legends Arceus still outsold Legends ZA, which by the way is the first Pokemon game for a shiny brand new system, and it's launching just in time for holiday. Legends ZA had the deck stacked in its favor in every way possible to outsell Legends Arceus, and it still didn't do it. And so if we extrapolate that 10.5% sales reduction across the life of Legends ZA, which maybe you can do that, maybe you can, I don't know, but we could assume that if Legends Arceus went on to sell, let's say 15 million units, because this is old data, this data is from like 2023, I think it's safe to assume that Legends ZA will go on to sell maybe 13.5 million copies. That's about a 10% reduction from 15 million of Legends Arceus, which as a reminder is like right in line with what I originally predicted the sales would be. I said it would be probably between 10 and 15 million. I think it will still land in that range, right? It could undersell, it could oversell for all I know. Like maybe they keep the marketing push going and it I don't know. But let me make one more thing abundantly clear, okay? And I've seen this comment a lot on my videos, which is why I want to touch on this, okay? If you bought the game and you like the game, I am genuinely happy for you. That's fantastic, right? There is so much negativity in the world that if you are able to find solace and bliss in this half-baked piece of trash, then by all means, I am happy for, like, I know I'm like being rude and obnoxious. I get that. Sometimes I can't help myself, but I really am happy for you. Like, who cares what people on the internet are saying? Okay, the game could be a 2 out of 10 by everyone's standards, and if you're the only one in the world that likes the game, that's all that matters. Okay, it really is that simple. Open and shut case. You don't need YouTubers to agree with you. It doesn't matter if YouTubers disagree with you. If you put the game in and you play it and you like it, then that's all that matters. Genuinely, that is the open and shut case. That is the reality here. Okay, the whole point of the discussion that we're having on this channel about Legends ZA is that quality and fun are not mutually exclusive, and you can make a game that looks good and is still as fun or more fun than any Pokemon game we've played on the Switch. And like, to be clear, I'm not a graphics end all be all kind of guy. It's not like all I care about is graphics and that's why I'm harping on this. Like, no, a game could be fun. Tetris is fun. For like, I literally played Tetris on the TV with my girlfriend a week ago and we played it for like 2 hours. All right, and it's not the new Tetris 99 battle royale game. We tried that, but we were playing mostly the NES version, the original one that's on the Switch online. So no, graphics are not the end of the story here, and a game could have horrible graphics and still be fun, right? But just because that's true doesn't mean we should be okay with games that look 20 years old. Like, there's really, at a certain point, there's no excuse for the game to look that bad. I mean, come on, like, what are we doing? It's okay for consumers to demand quality from the highest grossing media franchise in the world. Like, that you're spending $70 on this plus the DLC if you bought it. Like, you should get a quality product. And what are we talking about, right? Again, this is not mutually exclusive. I know you think the game's fun, that's fine, right? But like, can we at least agree it shouldn't look that bad? Like, what are we doing? Now let's go over the DLC leak that I mentioned earlier in the video. And really quick, if you guys notice in this video, I've been redacting people's names, and for full transparency, it's because these videos that I've been making about Pokemon have gotten way more views than I ever thought, and I am not interested in any drama on the internet. I genuinely do not care who you are. I'm not interested in like any sort of drama or dialogue. Even if you love Pokemon, we probably would be friends in real life. Like, I have no intention of sending hate or like negativity towards any specific individual. I'm merely talking about the ideas in this video, so that the person posting this stuff does not matter. Okay, in this case it's a leak. I don't really want that person to get in trouble if this ends up being true, but anyway, here's what they say is a confirmed leak. And again, I don't know if this is confirmed or not. They said over 150 returning Pokemon, 19 new mega evolutions plus returning megas, new mega rogue battles, 2 brand new moves, over 86 new side missions worth the $30. Now, the reason that I'm reporting on this is because I actually did see some things similar to this before the game even came out. I don't know if you guys know this, but Legends ZA actually leaked before the official release date, and I did see some leaks sort of mumbling about something right along these lines. And so now that we're seeing the same leak from multiple sources, I think it's a little bit more credible. Again, no idea. This could be completely wrong. I have no idea. So I just want to be very clear there. But because there's multiple sources reporting the same things, I'm inclined to believe that there's at least some truth to this. Okay, and what this means is, right, let me just be clear here, the game game launched with I think 234 Pokemon in the Pokedex in the base version, which is not only less than the 242 from Legends Arceus, but it's even less than the 251 from Gold and Silver, which came out in Japan in 1999 for the Game Boy. So ancient technology here. All right, so Legends EA has a shockingly low number of Pokemon, and I think now we know the reason why. It's because they want to charge you $30 for an extra 150. That's crazy. That is just robbery. They're just stealing your money. They just yoinked it right from they intentionally cut 150 Pokemon. This is what this means. They intentionally cut 150 Pokemon just to sell them back to you for 30 bucks, right? These Pokemon were planned to be in the game from day one, and yet they're releasing them a few months later but charging you on day one for it. Raise your hand if you think it's because they need to actually build all these models. Come on, no one believes that. That's insane. Everyone knows it's already ready. The entire reason that the DLC was available for purchase on day one, and even before that, I think you could pre-order the DLC, by the way, is to just capitalize on the maximum hype level of the game, okay? Because by the time February comes around, no one's gonna buy this DLC. They're gonna have already beaten the game months ago. It's only like 25-30 hours of content. No one's gonna care about this by the time February comes around. They're not, okay? But they know that you were hyped about the game before its release, and so they just farmed you before it came out, and now you're stuck with it. You already bought it. You got double scammed. Not only is the base game more money than any other Pokemon game, it was 70 bucks on the Switch too, but they intentionally cut content to sell you $30 DLC, which is more money than Silk Song, by the way. Like, it's half the cost of the Switch version of this game. Like, it's really an expensive DLC, and it's just cut content. Right now there might be like some story and stuff like that. I'm sure there's other stuff. So this game is not only a slap in the face to the valuable customer, but it's a spit in the face right after. I actually just feel bad for the Pokemon community. I just feel bad. Like, you guys are actually just you're getting farmed. You are literally being spawn camped. Like, day one, they've already got their hands in your pocket again, right? It's crazy. It seems impossible to agree with the mindless Pokemon consumers these days. They're just off in their own little world. And speaking of the Pokemon community that seems to be so toxic these days on the internet, let's talk about another aspect of the Pokemon community. All right, one of the biggest competitive Pokemon players is taking a break because of fan harassment. Wolfie Glick says fans have touched him, let's go with that, and otherwise overstepped at competitive events. You guys would know him as Wolfie VGC. Fantastic YouTube channel. I've seen tons of his videos, really enjoy the content there. Wolfie is one of the most prolific competitive Pokemon players in the space. He's won the official World Championship tournament, competed in several events around the world, and has amassed millions of followers on his YouTube channel where he talks about competitive Pokemon in the events he attends. However, Glick says in a lengthy new video that he will likely step away from in-person events because of harassment from fans. The pro player said he's had to deal with fans being inappropriate to him during pictures and pushing boundaries, like touching him without consent. He says this meant leaving this year's Worlds tournament early because he wasn't able to watch the event in peace after he had been eliminated, and the stress he feels from these events has now started to outweigh the enjoyment of competing in the tournament themselves. Glick also says he wants to be there primarily to compete, but the fan interactions have begun overtaking his private time at the shows, and even in some cases prevented him from getting to the matches on time. And this is just sad, man. It really is. And like, look, is this commentary on the Pokemon community, or is this commentary on just how people treat YouTubers, famous, online individuals? Maybe it's both, right? I think it probably has more to do with him having such a large fan base, right? I mean, realistically, this is not exclusive to the Pokemon community. As you guys know, I mean, this happens to movie stars, actors, actresses. It happens to Twitch streamers. It happens to everybody, unfortunately, right? Like, it's disgusting that it happens to anybody, but it's not exclusive to the Pokemon community, and it really sucks. And I hope that he's okay, genuinely. Like, I really wish him the best, because again, he's had fantastic content, given me hours of entertainment over the years, and I'm glad to see he is prioritizing his mental health, and furthermore, making a video about this, touching on the topic and spreading this awareness is like the best way to use anyone's platform, right? I mean, like, truthfully. But I will say, and this is purely anecdotal, so I have no evidence of this, but it does feel like the Pokemon community has been more toxic lately, like in the last year or so. Even with the release of Legends EA, I feel like the discourse has just hit fever pitch, and maybe this is because of social media. I think that let's be real here, social media platforms do kind of have a financial incentive to stoke the flames a little bit, to increase engagement, increase interactions. Every time you get a notification on your phone about someone leaving a hate comment, you open open up the app to respond, right? So like there is a financial incentive to stoke the flames here, and I think the platforms like Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, even YouTube have a particular role to play in, you know, cultivating this toxicity. But I do think Twitter, like especially lately, has felt particularly bad. I'll just say that. And like, look, I know in these videos I come off very abrasive, I'm an a-hole, and I'm very blunt with my opinions, and so it's no real wonder why, you know, I would get backlash from the Pokemon community. Obviously, like if I can dish it out, I can take it, right? But seeing Wolfie actually say things like this, and it's not just these in-person instances that he's talking about, you can go ahead and watch his video. He actually talks about the toxicity and the pressure of the community itself.
And so I was especially surprised this year after being eliminated from Worlds at just the level of hate and vitriol that I was seeing online. I got offline pretty quickly in part because of this, but yeah, like I just think that the level and the rate of messages that I can't even repeat here because of some of the things people are saying has increased at a level that I'm not super comfortable with.
When you look at him and you think, okay, well, that's a guy that the Pokemon community should really like. I mean, his review of Scarlet and Violet was like, he was all in. He was talking about how much he loved those games, right? And so if there's anybody that the Pokemon community should love, it would be somebody like him who makes just Pokemon content that's for the Pokemon community, and he's done it for years, right? Like I'm not a part of the Pokemon community. I'm just a fan of the games. I'm just talking about Pokemon now because it's relevant and it's in the news. I'm not like actually always talking about it on Twitter and like discuss this. No, it's just the topic of the moment right now. But if even he is noticing all the toxicity in the Pokemon community, then it's like, okay, well, do I deserve that? Sure, totally, but I don't think that he does. And I think that is a commentary on the Pokemon community itself, not just the fact that I'm very blunt in my delivery. I think that's obviously a component of why I get, you know, hate comments, obviously, but it's also clearly the case that it's not just me. The Pokemon community definitely has something to do with it. And also, let me just say one last thing here, just to be very clear. I'm not saying that the Pokemon community does this weirdo touching stuff in public. This is obviously just a small handful of total weirdos, okay? That, let's just be very clear about that. The Pokemon community does not have a monopoly on being a weirdo. People in all shapes, sizes, and colors are weirdos, and we should condemn the individual, not a whole group of people, obviously, right? Obviously. The whole point of all this, and maybe I haven't worded this very well, but I thought I was getting toxicity and negativity because I'm taking a dookie on their favorite thing, which is true, but it also seems to be the case that they're toxic to even just regular popular members of their community. It's like, wow, yeah, the community really is that toxic. That is super sad. And I've said this in past videos, but let me just reiterate here to be very clear, okay? The point of my videos is to spread this message that if you realize the games are slop, you're not alone, and you're allowed to demand quality from these giga corporations like Nintendo that are worth $100 billion, okay? The goal here is to be on the side of the gamer. The goal here is to be on the side of the consumer who's spending their hard-earned money on these games, $60, $70, $80 plus more for online services, DLCs, whatever. I'm sticking up for you guys because I am you guys. I'm buying these games, and it's like we're getting less for more money, and it sucks. That's the point of these videos. The point of the, I'm not here to like crap on your childhood nostalgia. I have childhood nostalgia for the Pokemon franchise. Do you understand? It's because I'm such a fan of the series that I am so critical of it. The things you love most are the things that you should hold to the highest standard, right? Just in the same way that it's worse to be disrespected by friends and family than it is by the guy that you're in road rage with, right? Like people on the street can flip me off. I don't care, right? It doesn't matter to me. But the people that I do care about, if I find out they're disrespecting me, it's even worse, right? And it's the same thing here with franchises, that we've grown up with this thing, you know what I mean? And so it's worse to me that Pokemon of all franchises is releasing such low quality content, right? It feels worse to me than if, you know, Madden does it, because I didn't grow up with Madden, right? I don't care about sports, but now I know how Madden players feel, right? Like Pokemon fans are getting the Madden treatment, and it sucks. Like we're just getting the same rehash trash every year, and I'm just supposed to be okay with that. Like I'm just supposed to make YouTube videos about, oh my god, yay, the graphics look 15 years old, this is so good, you guys, yay. Oh my god, sales are down 10.5% globally, but everything's fine, you guys. Yes, dude, this is so good, yay. Please give me money, guys, yay. Now if you made it to the end of this video, consider dropping a thumbs up down below. It's gonna help me fight off these so-called Pokemon fans that are gonna dislike bomb this video. And you might think you're subscribed, but you're actually not. Double check.